How does conflict make you feel? Even the topic of conflict, how does it make you feel? Do you feel anything in your body, your throat, your neck, your chest, your face? Does your face get flushed, your chest tighten, your throat? You get a lump in your throat, your belly, it starts to tingle, your arms. Where do you have any feelings about conflict? How do you feel about conflict? Or how does conflict make you feel? What is going on, EQ gangsters? So this is going to be an episode here sharing a massive breakthrough for me, a massive proof of growth for me. And really excited to share this because this is a major deal for me. Again, some of you all, this may not be super relatable. It's around the area of conflict. And before I jump into the details, again, just want to thank you guys. Thank you for being a part of, our kind of outside community, so to speak. Some of you guys know we have an internal community that we're working with on a monthly basis. It's called the EQ Mafia, and you can register for that at eqgangster.com/mafia, where we already have a ton of content in there, 150 hours probably of content. Plus, we go live once to twice a month as a live group coaching session discussing various topics, all kinds of topics about emotional intelligence to have kind of a more intentional emotional fitness program. So that's, if you're interested in something like that, definitely check that out. We'd love to have you. But again, at a minimum, thank you for watching our YouTube channel, listening to our podcast. Absolutely appreciate it. And thank you for those of you all that have subscribed, shared, rated, reviewed. Again, our podcast, really appreciate that. It means a lot. So this is an area that I have been absolutely terrible at in my life, just been terrible at conflict. Now looking back, it's completely unsurprising because of where my emotional intelligence has been. And I'm going to share, so if you're watching YouTube, I'm going to be, going to my notes here. So if you see me looking down, that's what I'm doing. For those of you on the podcast, irrelevant. So some questions here, but again, this is a massive proof of growth. So this does have a positive, successful ending. So it's not going to be all like, oh my gosh, man, this dude is jacked up, which I have been. I have definitely been. Again, this is just one area that has revealed my emotional intelligence, again, conflict. So here's some questions for you to chew on. I'm going to throw out quite a few. If you're at a spot where you can take notes, these are some questions you may want to write down. If you want to pause it and grab a pen, if you want to go back and review it and write them down when you're at a spot where you can write the questions down, I think it would be really helpful during your reflection time to go over some of these questions. How do you handle conflict? So scale from 1 to 10, if you had to rate yourself, maybe if you're listening to this working out, if you're driving down the road, whatever, like just real quickly, scale 1 to 10. 10, you're a conflict rock star. 1, you are a conflict train wreck. Where would you put yourself on the map on a scale from 1 to 10? Next question, how does conflict make you feel? Even the topic of conflict, how does it make you feel? Do you feel anything in your body, your throat, your neck, your chest, your face? Does your face get flushed, your chest tighten, your throat? You get a lump in your throat, your belly, it starts to tingle, your arms. Do you have any feelings about conflict? How do you feel about conflict? Or how does conflict make you feel? Next question, how do you know how good you are at conflict? How do you know how good you are at conflict? What does healthy, productive conflict look like? What does healthy, productive conflict look like? have you seen healthy, productive conflict? Where have you seen healthy, productive conflict? What are some of the traits or qualities of unhealthy, unproductive conflict versus healthy, productive conflict? How do you define healthy, productive conflict? What stories or truths have you told yourself about conflict? And by truths, I mean maybe current perceived truths, but may not be actual truths. I've got many stories that I've told myself about conflict, and they have not been healthy or productive. Excuse me. So those are a handful of questions to chew on and reflect on. Let me give you a couple examples with what conflict looks like from an emotionally unhealthy perspective. Now, these are my personal stories, so this is real life. So one particular conflict I had with a narcissist, and again, at the time, I was very, very emotionally unhealthy. I was literally consumed by this conflict for hours a day, consciously and unconsciously. It was almost all I could think about when my eyes were open. My chest was tight. I had a knot in my throat. My face was flushed. I felt like I had absolutely no control over being constantly obsessed or consumed about this conflict that I was going through with this narcissist. I felt like I had no control over my emotions. It was almost blinding and numbing all at the same time, blinding and numbing. And I'm giving you obviously an extreme example of a conflict that I have been through over the past handful of years. Being in that state impacted and affected all my relationships because all my emotional bandwidth was going towards this conflict. I had very little emotional bandwidth, if any, for being present, being mindful, being engaged with my friends and family that I had in my life and have in my life. So how emotionally available was definitely impacted again by this state, this mental and emotional state that I was in. I had a short temper. I was agitated all the time. I was grumpy. I had difficulty thinking clearly, logically, objectively. Why? Because the state that I was in, I was emotionally hijacked, which I talk about quite a bit throughout the various episodes and stuff. It was almost like I was a passenger in the passenger seat of the car of my life. When you get emotionally hijacked, that's what happens. Your emotions take over, and now you are no longer driving the car of your life. You are now in the passenger seat, or sometimes the back seat, or maybe sometimes the trunk of the car, depending on how emotionally hijacked you were. And for me, I was in the trunk. It was bad news bears. Let me tell you some of the emotions I was feeling. I felt helpless, angry, rage, disrespected, rejected, controlled, manipulated, gaslighted, bitter, let down, resentful, violated, disgusted, furious, revolted, provoked, infuriated, annoyed, jaded, sad, repelled, hurt, and disappointed, to name a few. So I had all those emotions swirling around. But again, in the moment at the time, this is a number of years ago, because I had no emotional awareness, self-awareness, or self-management, I had no control. I didn't name any of those. That's only looking back in hindsight what I was experiencing or going through at the time. The next conflict experience where I handled it very, very poorly, which had almost the exact same impact on my mental and emotional and even physical state. An organization that I was a part of for many years, we discovered after we started growing emotionally that this organization had many of the characteristics and qualities of a cult. If you look up unhealthy, toxic cultures, a cult-like environment will probably pop up. Just read through all the different qualities and characteristics of a cult. That was this organization that we were a part of for many, many years. And again, I had no idea. And for outsiders, if you've never been a part of a cult before, a cult-like organization, you may think, well, dude, anyone could notice that it's a cult. You're an idiot. Well, I will tell you that there were a lot of factors that played into us not only getting into an organization with many cult-like qualities and characteristics, but then stayed in it, and not only stayed in it, but thrived in that environment. One of the things that should tell you is just the consequences of not having self-awareness. Again, neither of us had self-awareness to know what was even going on. It was not until we started to grow emotionally that our eyes started to open and we started to see, wow, how unhealthy the control, manipulation, gaslighting, guilt, shame, fear, control, all the different things that are part of an unhealthy, toxic organization. Again, that's the consequence of not having self-awareness. And some of the also having a low emotional intelligence and emotional health was I didn't have any boundaries. I never learned any boundaries, personal or professional boundaries. And so this organization, they didn't have any boundaries. They are involved in every single area of your life. They want to know everything about you. And you had to get permission from the higher ups in order to make this. Perspective is what they called it. Their word was perspective. We just want to give you perspective, which is code for permission in your faith, in your marriage, in your parenting, in your finances, in your you couldn't sneeze without, hey, is it okay if I sneeze right now? Going on vacation, going to see your family, every decision they wanted to be involved in. And of course, if you didn't allow them that access in your life, you would experience disappointment, shame. Wow, I'm just really disappointed in your decision-making process. I would have expected that you would have made better decisions. Don't you love your family? Right? All these comments and stuff. And man, I was like, oh man, you're right. I guess I don't love my family enough, right? All these things. But again, I had no boundaries personally or professionally. So I just let it all happen. I had no awareness of what was going on. And here's the deal. Again, with that, and it honestly took a few years. I'm talking literally 2 to 3 years to detox from that toxic environment. And that's intentional detox, intentional emotional growth and healing as a result of being a part of that organization. This was not a sit down with a therapist for one time. This was no joke, y'all. That was very, very intense coming out of that experience. And so, but again, it left me feeling that whole detox process was the exact same as dealing with this narcissist. You could almost say that organization was narcissistic. I haven't done like the deep dive, but I almost guarantee just now as I'm externally processing that the organization itself is narcissistic. They're not teachable. Any kind of feedback that you provide to them is completely you're gaslighted. They respond with defensiveness, and they make you feel like an idiot. Well, no, this is just you, man. You just don't understand. Because you're not a big enough leader. If you were a bigger leader, a stronger leader, better leader, you would understand what's going on. But because you're not further along in your own journey, that's why you just don't understand kind of where we're coming from and stuff. So you just need to keep growing. You need to keep your nose to the grindstone. You don't need to, don't spend time asking questions. Just spend time doing more work, because asking more questions is actually taking you away from the work that you should and could be doing and need to be doing if you really loved your family, right? Can you hear all that? It makes me sick thinking about it. That is what they would do, y'all. And so again, it left me the last 2 to 3 years of detoxing from that. I was emotionally hijacked. Again, as I was growing my EQ, now it slowly subsided and resided, but it was very intense experience. Those two conflicts, the one with the narcissist individual and then the other one with the narcissist organization. So it was no joke. All right. Here's the thing. Now that I'm healthier emotionally, well, can you tell there's probably still some more growth I need to do? even just hearing me process some of that stuff, I'm like, wow, man, I think I have some more healing that I need to do in some of those areas there. So I can even feel my chest is heating up. Oh, snap. So that's good. This is good talking about this. So here's the massive breakthrough, though. I have a couple other conflict scenarios that I'm currently involved in. One with another organization, and different than the one I talked about before. And then conflict with some folks in another organization. And here's what's awesome about these new conflict scenarios that I'm currently in now that I am healthier emotionally. Number one, I can think clearly. Number two, I'm not confused. Number three, I'm not emotionally hijacked. Number four, I can be objective. Number five, I can see the different sides of the parties involved in the conflict. Number six, I'm unemotional. Number seven, I'm patient. Number 8, I'm not rushing to make rash, ill, thought out decisions. Number 9, I am not and will not be controlled or manipulated or gaslighted. Number 10, I have boundaries personally and professionally going through these new conflict scenarios. Those are just 10 points that are proof of growth and the power of emotional growth and emotional intelligence. So some general points about conflict I want to share with you all. Again, these may be some good things to take notes on, to jot down if you are in an environment where you can do that. Some general points about conflict. Number one, and this is just from my reflecting on this whole dynamic between pre-emotional growth, facing conflict, and now current emotional growth, emotionally healthier, facing conflict. Number one, conflict and adversity reveals the level of emotional intelligence of the people involved in the conflict. Conflict and adversity reveals the level of emotional intelligence of the people involved in the conflict, or lack thereof, right? It reveals the levels. Number two, conflict can be destructive or productive depending on your own emotional health and perspective. Conflict can be destructive or productive depending on your own emotional health and perspective. Number three, conflict can lead to stronger relationships if the conflict is handled properly. Conflict can lead to stronger relationships if the conflict is handled appropriately. Number four, conflict is a normal part of every healthy relationship. Conflict is a normal part of every healthy relationship. Number five, with the right perspective, conflict can be a tremendous teacher, instructor, coach. With the right perspective, conflict can be a tremendous teacher, instructor, coach. 6, what can you learn about yourself, God, and the other parties going through the conflict? What can you learn about yourself, God, and other parties that are involved while going through the conflict? Number 7, Are all parties involved in the conflict respecting each other? Respecting each other personally, professionally? Are they listening to each other? Are all the parties listening to each other? Seeking first to understand, then be understood. If those are not happening, if there's not respect, if there's not safety, is every party creating safety in that conflict? If there is a party that is not creating safety, that is not respecting or being respectful, that is not listening, those are all red flags and all things that should prepare you to approach that conflict more cautiously and slowly, and to mentally and emotionally prepare yourself even more than maybe you normally would in facing a conflict. Because the other dynamic that maybe will be for another episode is going into conflict where maybe you are emotionally healthier, interacting or engaging with someone that is not emotionally healthy or not emotionally intelligent, not very emotionally intelligent. So how do you navigate? How does an emotionally intelligent person navigate conflict with an emotionally unintelligent person? So that's another thought to chew on there. So I cannot encourage you enough to pursue emotional healing and your own emotional growth and emotional intelligence so that you can handle life's conflict such that it doesn't consume you and possibly destroy you or the relationships you find yourself in. Conflict can be a truly wonderful growth tool for everyone involved if you have the right perspective and if you are emotionally healthy enough to have that perspective and to go and grow through that conflict. We're on the receiving end of each other's emotional intelligence or lack thereof every single day. You're on the receiving end of my emotional intelligence, whatever that level that is, by listening to this podcast or watching the YouTube channel. Everyone who is in your life, friends, families, colleagues, coworkers, staff, company, organization, are on the receiving end of your emotional intelligence or lack thereof every single day. Your children are on the receiving end of your emotional intelligence or lack thereof every single day. Unaddressed emotional issues don't get better over time. They actually compound. Emotionally healthy people help heal other people emotionally. Thank you again for rating, reviewing, subscribing, sharing our YouTube channel, our podcast or podcast episodes. And if you're ready to take your emotional fitness program to the next level, check out eqgangster.com/mafia.